it's you liberals who have lifted them up, Howard.
Paul, you conservatives make a mistake. You can't afford to strangle hope in people. Without hope, people become dangerous.
No, Howard, you liberals have let them invade our society. You give them jobs, political jobs.
Paul, you missed the point. It's only the smart ones we move up.
That makes it even worse.
No, we have to move them up. If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us. But if we raise him up into white society, we neutralize him. He feels compelled to try to act like us. He loses his identity and his racial anger, if he has any. He becomes alien to his brothers. They realize he sold them out, and they grow to hate him. He becomes worthless to them and safe for us. No, thank you. In fact, in his love for the creature comforts, except for his color, he's become one of us.
If you like boogie woogie rhythm, she's gotta be. That's a boogie woogie. Watch a woman give you a treat. On every afternoon, that's when the sessions begin. And all the boys from all the bands come down and sit in. They sit around and knock each other out when they play. While the boogie woogie, watch a woman watch it all day. Rub me up, that's just the way she rubs. Rub me up, that's just the way she rubs. Rub me up, she wears all the stuff. She rubs and rubs with knuckles right on down to the nut. Rub me up, that's how she kicks it off. Rub me up, she keeps it nice and soft. Rub me up, but I'm one of those from me, mama, with the boogie beat. You really are twisted there if you've never been. It doesn't cost a penny, just come down and walk in. If you like boogie woogie rhythm, you'll get a treat. That's the boogie woogie, what you wanna get to a beat. Rubbly up down!
Rubbly up down. She rubbed and rubbed the knuckles right on down to the nub, yeah. And she keeps it nice and soft.
So someone holler dog.
Scrub me, mama, with a boo-hoo-hoo-hoo me.
Scrub, rub, 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 rubbing all day. Scrub, 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 scrubbing away. Scrub me, mama, beat me, mama, rub me, mama. Scrub me, mama, mama.
But my grandfather, before he died, told me of the things they would do. He said he would go down. He said his grandfather said they would go down and they would take babies with them. I said, what do you mean babies? He says, well, let me tell you. He said the slave babies, the slaves who had babies, they would steal the babies during the course of the day, sometimes when the mothers weren't washing. I said, what do you mean babies? I said, you mean babies like 5 or 6 years old? He says, no. These babies, some would be infants, some would be a year old. He said some would be toddlers. He said they would grab these children and take them down to the swamp and leave them in pens like little chicken coops. They would go down there at night, take these babies and tie them up because they hunted the big bull alligators. These big bull alligators were not raised on the farms. They were in the wild. These alligators would weigh 600, 700, 800 pounds. Those are the ones they wanted. They would skin them, make the wallets, get the meat, do different things with them. He said, but what they were doing was tie them up, put a rope around their neck and around their torso, around here, and tie it tight. He said, the baby, I said, well, what would the babies be doing? He said, well, my grandfather said they'd be screaming. He said, what would you do? He said, just let them scream. He said, what they would do, it would help them to chum the water. He said, when they would throw the babies in tied to this rope, he said, in a matter of minutes, he said, the alligators were on them. He said the alligators would clamp his jaws on that child. As a matter of fact, once he clamped on him, he was really swallowed. You couldn't see anything but the rope. And we would pull the alligator in and tie his nose and hit him in the head with an axe, a pickaxe. He said we would then drag him to the shore. We'd drag him to the shore and leave him lay, and we would do it again, maybe 2 or 3 times a night. He said, I said, so what do you mean? He said, well, yeah, they were taking these babies and killing them for alligator bait. I said, so all these things I've been collecting, all these things I've been collecting are really, really something that I can really talk about and say they're of a truth by what you say. He said, I'm telling you, he said, nobody wants to talk about it. He said, I'm only telling you because you're here. I may never hear from you again. He said, but these things actually depict the acts that they did to slave babies back in the Bayou country and down the south. They did this. They hunted alligators with these babies. That's why they call alligator bait.
Thank you all. Terrorism, terror, 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 terrorist, terrorist, terrorists, terror organization, terrorist attacks, terror, terrorism, terrorist network, terrorist attacks, terrorist group, terrorists, terrorist, terror, terror, terrorist, terrorist, terrorists, instruments of terror, terror network, terror cells, terrorists, terrorizing terror and murder, terrorism, terrorists, or terrorists, a tool of terror and torture.
Attention, please. This film, now released for public showing, has been captured from the enemy. It is a typical example of vicious Japanese propaganda. And now please to observing a look at listening post. Over here are honorable aircraft spotter. Now we are showing you fire prevention headquarters. Oh, son of a gun, too late.
背中だけが白い母親。子供が守ったに違いない。石川光陽は日記に書いている。泥にまみれた雷花を万国の恨みを飲んで死んでいった多くの死体に向けることは目に見えない霊からこんな惨めな姿を撮るなと叱責されるような気がしてその手は震えシャッターを押す手は鈍った。大本営がその他とまとめた下町の亡骸一つ一つに人生があった。3月10日に何が起きたのか、光陽はその後も撮り続けた。台東区上野、墨田区本所菊川橋。川の遺体は燃えていないものも多かった。
Iraq, 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 Iraqi, Dick, Iraq, 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 with Iraq, 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 Iraqi, Iraq, 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 Iraqi, Iraq, Iraqi, Iraq, 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 Iraqi people. September the 11th. September the 11th. September the 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam.
I was a bit worried about those guys. Goodness gracious.
The Washita are the dark-skinned original inhabitants of North and South America. They have been referred to as the pre-Columbian civilizations, the prehistoric mound builders, the diggers, and the ancient ones. Certified legal documents of colonial and Spanish and French explorers identified the Washita as the ancient occupants of America. The Washita Nation are akin to the Moors of Northwest Africa and are responsible for building the highly advanced geometric earthworks and sacred burial mounds found all over this continent.
People always ask, who are the mound builders? When did they exist? The mound builders are the indigenous original inhabitants of North and South America. The mound builders did not exist in a vacuum in one time period. We have always been here, and we shall always be here.
Modern science teaches that all the continents on the earth were once connected in one piece of land. They call it Pangea. Washita history actually says the same thing as do the scriptures. The Washita, the indigenous people of this land that we now call America, were on this land when it was connected in one piece. When this land was connected to what is now called Africa, the Washita were on this land that we call America. So the Washita do not come from anywhere. We did not come to America from someplace else. We were already here. We have always been here. Back to the time when scientists called the land Pangea, when it was one piece. So we have always been on this land. Poverty Point, located in Pioneer, Louisiana, near Monroe, is recognized as the second largest earthen pyramid in North America. This ancient site, called the Great Bird Mound by the natives, was a cultural center for the advanced temple, mound, pyramid civilization. Poverty Point, as it is currently called, is located in northeastern Louisiana, in Washita Parish, in the city of what is now called Monroe, or near Monroe. The Washita referred to it as the Bird Mound because there is a very large earthen mound in the shape of a bird with outstretched wings. In some places it measures 70 feet high. The wingspan of the bird is 640 feet, and it actually measures 710 feet from the head to the tail. At the base of the bird, at the foot, there are 6 concentric ridges composed of earth, and the Washita actually had their homes located on these ridges that at one time measured as high as 5 feet.
In a Western education world, Poverty Point has been identified as the oldest community in North America, in that Poverty Point was a complete city in construction. Its dynamics, its the civil engineering that went to design the city has been copied for thousands of years, and the community is in the shape of a concentric rings, several concentric rings, and these rings are duplicated over and over again in the U.S. Congress, where the seats are laid out, in the Roman Senate. You go to most entertainment venues, a theater, you'll find that modern-day theaters that are acoustically designed are in the same formation as Poverty Point, and Poverty Point being a place that is known to be as old as, or as young as, 12 centuries before the birth of Christ. When you speak of Poverty Point, you speak of a time that wasn't supposed to exist. Poverty Point, at its height, not its beginning, but at its height, was at least 1,000 years before any agriculture was supposed to have occurred in North America. So Poverty Point has served as an anomaly for years when scientists came in and archaeologists came in and argued that there's no way this could exist. If archaeologists go and do research, they don't even have a name for the time period that they find artifacts at Poverty Point. And what's more, at Poverty Point, not only did they find artifacts there that would date back 1,000 years, but they were enduring years, and that these people showed a legacy of continuous occupation at Poverty Point. In that I mean that they would do research and they would dig down 1 foot and they might find something that was 4,000 years old. A few more inches, find something 5,000 years old. Further down, 6,000 years old. So here you have evidence of a legacy of continuous occupation.